हे गाइस, वेलकम टू बाबा सब कुछ। तो रिसेंटली स्पेसएक्स ने एक सैटेलाइट लॉन्च किया है और इस वीडियो में हम सैटेलाइट लॉन्च को देखेंगे। उसके साथ मैं आपको बताऊंगा टेक ऑफ के बाद की डिटेल्स। तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं।
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
10, 9, 8,
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
SXM-7 एक हाई लार्ज पावर ब्रॉडकास्टिंग सैटेलाइट है जो कि बनाया गया है SiriusXM डिजिटल ऑडियो रेडियो सर्विस के लिए। SXM-7 को बनाया गया है XM-3 सैटेलाइट को रिप्लेस करने के लिए। SXM-7 को लॉन्च किया गया है ऑन SpaceX Falcon 9 Block 5 रॉकेट पे।
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition, and we have liftoff.
Stage 1 propulsion nominal.
तो यहाँ पे हम देख सकते हैं कि बहुत ही सक्सेसफुल लिफ्ट ऑफ हुआ है।
We're now 30 seconds into flight, and Falcon 9 is preparing to pass through max Q, which will happen at T plus 1 minute and 12 seconds. For those of you that might be unfamiliar with this term, max Q is when the vehicle will experience the greatest amount of dynamic pressure. Call out there that everything is looking nominal for first stage. To prepare for max Q, we throttle the engines down and then back up about 20 seconds later. And this helps ensure that we keep those dynamic pressures below a certain level.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
So there we heard the call out that the vehicle is now going faster than the speed of sound.
तो यहाँ पे उन्होंने बताया कि Falcon 9 अभी वो सुपरसोनिक स्पीड पे है।
Vehicle is experiencing maximum dynamic pressure.
जैसा भी उसने बताया कि व्हीकल इज़ पासिंग थ्रू मैक्स क्यू, तो दिस इज़ अ टाइम वेयर जो हमारा रॉकेट है वो सबसे मैक्सिमम डायनामिक प्रेशर झेल रहा है।
Now in just a few seconds we'll hear the call out that MVAC chill has begun. Just like we did on the M1D engines for first stage, we open the pre-valves between the propellant tanks and the turbo pumps, allow some of that super chilled liquid oxygen to cool down the turbo pump hardware. There we go. So MVAC chill has begun. So that super chilled liquid oxygen is flowing through the turbo pumps, allowing them to cool off prior to full flow of propellant. Everything is looking good with stage 1 trajectory. Coming up, we're going to have 3 events happening in quick succession. We're going to have main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation and SES1 or second engine start 1.
अभी नेक्स्ट स्टेज है हमारे मेको। मेको मतलब मेन इंजन कट ऑफ।
Coming up in 3 seconds.
And Miko.
Stage separation confirmed.
All right.
तो यहाँ पे हम देख सकते हैं कि मेन इंजन कट ऑफ हो गया है
as well as MVAC ignition.
और स्टेज सेपरेशन भी कंफर्म हो गया है।
Great view there of planet Earth.
तो यहाँ पे जो फर्स्ट स्टेज है वो उनका ऑटोमेटेड सेल्फ लैंडिंग है, तो वो खुद एक ड्रोन शिप है जो एक सी में शिप हो रहा है जहाँ पे ये ऑटोमेटिकली लैंड होगा। तो यहाँ पे हम देख सकते हैं कि लेफ़्ट साइड में जो उनके टाइटेनियम फिन्स है जो उन्हें ग्राइड करके शिप पे लैंड करेंगे, और राइट साइड में हम देख सकते हैं कि जो सेकंड स्टेज इंजन है वो फायर अप हुआ है। तो अभी नेक्स्ट यहाँ पे होने वाला है फेयरिंग सेपरेशन।
The booster back to the drone ship.
Bearing separation confirmed.
And confirmation that the
तो राइट साइड में हम देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पे फेयरिंग सेपरेशन हो गया है और हम सैटेलाइट को देख सकते हैं।
SXM-7 satellite. If you look closely, you can actually see the fairing disappearing from view in the background there. Currently at T plus 4 minutes and 3 seconds into flight, and we're performing the first of 2 planned MVAC burns. At stage separation, the first stage's velocity is about 2,200 meters per second or 5,000 meters per hour, pretty fast. Once the first and second stages separate, that first stage is actually still moving at such a high velocity that it continues to raise its altitude as it coasts for a couple of minutes prior to starting its downward return back to Earth.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
The next major milestone that we'll be able to see will be that first stage entry burn. For the entry burn, we relight the center engine, which we call E9, and then partway through the transition back through the Earth's atmosphere, we relight 2 more Merlin M1D engines, E1 and E5, to give us a total of 3 M1Ds, helping to slow the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. We're expecting that entry burn to begin in about 1 minute. Trajectory continues to look good there on second stage, carrying the SXM-7 satellite for SiriusXM.
Vehicle is on a nominal trajectory.
Gorgeous views of first stage as it has now reoriented itself, coasting through apogee and now returning back down. As I mentioned, we will be performing 2 maneuvers for that landing. First entry burn coming up in about 10 seconds, followed of course by the landing burn on the drone ship.
तो यहाँ पे हमारा एक नेक्स्ट एक्टिविटी होने वाला है, वो है फर्स्ट स्टेज एंट्री बर्न। मतलब
50 miles above.
जब फर्स्ट स्टेज लैंडिंग के लिए आ रहा है तो वो थोड़ा स्पीड डिक्रीज करने के लिए उसके थोड़ा सा वो फर्स्ट बर्न करेंगे।
On the left-hand side of your screen for that first stage re-entry. Again, we start by
तो यहाँ पे हम लेफ्ट साइड में देख सकते हैं कि एंट्री बर्न चालू हो गया है। तो इससे क्या होगा कि बेसिकली जो उसकी स्पीड है वो थोड़ी डिक्रीज हो जाएगी, मतलब एक तरह से रिवर्स ब्रेकिंग की तरह हम लोग बोल सकते हैं।
and shutdown of those 3 engines for entry burn.
राइट साइड में हमारा सैटेलाइट अभी भी एल्टीट्यूड गेन कर रहा है धीरे धीरे करके।
Continues to look nominal there for second stage on the right-hand side of your
तो
screen.
उन्होंने अभी वापस स्टेज 1 का जो इंजन है वो स्टॉप कर दिया है,
With Earth behind it.
क्योंकि हमें लैंडिंग के टाइम पे भी वापस फ्यूल की ज़रूरत है।
Major milestones happening back to back. The start of the landing burn followed immediately by SECO 1 or second engine cutoff 1 on the second stage. SECO is where we shut down that MVAC engine to allow the second stage to coast for a little bit. This event preserves the fuel until we need it for the final burn to take us to our targeted orbit for the SXM-7 satellite. And then about 25 seconds after SECO 1, we'll hopefully have a live view of the first stage touching down
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
on our drone ship. Just read the instructions. So we're expecting the landing burn to begin in about 10 seconds. And SECO to begin in about 15 seconds.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Everything continued to looking nominal. And there we heard the call out of SECO.
लेफ्ट साइड में हम देख सकते हैं कि ये वो ड्रोन शिप है.
For that landing on the left-hand side.
यहाँ पे थोड़ा फुटेज का इशू हो गया आई गेस. Let's hope for positive.
Looks like we lost the feed there. We'll try to bring that back to you whenever we have the opportunity. But we did hear the call out that we have good orbit for the second stage. So nominal orbital insertion.
Stage 1 is landed. Landing operators proceed into 11.100 on recovery 1.
We did hear the call.
तो यहाँ पे confirmation आया कि जो हमारा first stage landing है वो हो गया है. तो यहाँ पे हम देख सकते हैं लैंडिंग का फुटेज तो नहीं है बट लैंड किया हुआ है उसका फुटेज तो आ गया है. सो that's a great
booster, also marking the 69th successful recovery of a Falcon 9 first stage. The second stage vehicle has just entered its first coast phase, which will last about 18 minutes, and we'll light that MVAC engine for a second time shortly thereafter at T plus 26 minutes and 3 seconds. We're going to take a break here, and as always, if you're interested in keeping an eye on that second stage throughout its coast phase, we'll leave you with an animation. See you back here at T plus 25 minutes. Welcome back to our webcast for the SiriusXM SXM-7 mission. To recap what's happened so far this afternoon, we had a smooth liftoff at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. 2.5 minutes later, our first and second stages successfully separated. The first stage, which made its 7th flight today, landed on our drone ship. Just read the instructions. And the second stage completed its first burn, successfully inserting the SXM-7 and second stage into its planned parking orbit. Right now, we're coming up on the second burn of the upper stage engine here in just a couple of minutes. Currently, the flight computer is commanding the settling thrusters to turn on and off, releasing nitrogen gas that helps lightly push the stage, allowing propellant to stay at the bottom of the tank above the engine, right where we need it. We're expecting that second engine start 2 to occur in a couple of seconds. And there we can see that that MVAC engine has ignited. And the nozzle beginning to turn a lovely orange. At this point in time, the second stage will burn for about 45 seconds, adding over 2,000 meters per second to the second stage's speed before shutting it down for a second time. That shutdown event is called SECO 2, or Second Engine Cutoff Number 2. This burn places the SXM satellite into the required orbit prior to separating it from Falcon 9. And we had confirmation that we have a good burn.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And nominal orbit for that second stage. As a reminder for those tuning in, the SXM-7 satellite is still attached to the Falcon 9 second stage. That second stage is now going to start a slow spin, which will help stabilize the SXM-7 satellite when it's released. This transition will take about 5 minutes, with satellite separation at approximately T plus 31 minutes and 38 seconds. While we'll wait for the satellite to get closer to its final destination, we'll pause commentary for now during this quick coast phase, but we'll come back in just before separation takes place in about 3 minutes. Welcome back to our coverage of the SXM-7 mission for SiriusXM. If you're just joining us, we had an on-time launch at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by a successful ascent, stage separation, first stage landing, and 2 second stage engine burns. We have just one more major milestone coming up today, which of course is the deployment of the SXM-7 satellite from the Falcon 9 second stage, which you see there on your screen now. That separation is scheduled to take place about a minute from now. The satellite that we're carrying on board today, the SXM-7, is SiriusXM's next generation high power broadcasting satellite.
Acquisition of signal HPK.
It was designed to provide service for more than 15 years. And it'll be joining SiriusXM's active fleet to provide audio entertainment and data services to the continental United States, Canada, Puerto Rico, and the Caribbean. It'll be outputting over 8,000 watts of content, meaning it will deliver the highest power density of any commercial satellite on orbit. And it's intended to replace the SXM-7 satellite that is currently on orbit, about 20 seconds away from that payload deployment.
तो अभी ये लोग सैटेलाइट डिप्लॉय करेंगे, तो
Payload separation confirmed.
तो यहाँ पे पेलोड सेपरेशन कंफर्म किया है उन्होंने। तो यहाँ पे सक्सेसफुली उन्होंने सैटेलाइट को ऑर्बिट में पहुँचा दिया है। तो आई होप आपको ये वीडियो में बहुत सीखने मिला होगा, कुछ नए टर्म्स पता चले होंगे। तो अगर आपको ये वीडियो पसंद आए तो प्लीज़ लाइक कमेंट शेयर करिए एंड थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग।